Hello, my name is Daniel Loehnert, and I'm a United States Marine Corps veteran. I'm originally from Jacksonville, Florida, and I was born and raised there before enlisting into the Marine Corps shortly after my high school graduation. I spent 5 years in the Marine Corps where I worked on C-130 aircraft, and then I filled a billet as the chief instructor for water survival before I ended my enlistment back in 2019. You can see in the pictures on the left, the top one there's the skyline of Jacksonville, where I'm from. And then the C-130 there is actually one of the ones I worked on when I was deployed during my time in the Marine Corps. And the pictures on the right there, the top one is me getting some training before going to my instructor course. And then the picture below is an action shot of a little bit about what we do at the instructor course. So fast forward to 2022 and into 2023, where I started my new career transition into the IT field by taking college courses while working full-time on C-130s with Lockheed Martin. It was during my time taking college courses that I discovered Savvy Coders and their data analytics bootcamp. I decided to apply for the bootcamp and was offered the opportunity. So our Capstone project had me digging for some questions that I could answer by utilizing different data analysis techniques such as Python, SQL, Excel, and Tableau, along with others. I've always had a love for college football, and I became curious, does the overall fan attendance at a bowl game correlate to the win-loss record for a team? So learning Agile and the framework around it helped me communicate better with my team, and I was able to ask the right questions when it came to our Capstone projects. I served as my team's Scrum Master for the first half of the cohort. This is where I led the daily meetings and took notes for my team to relay back and forth to our instructors any information, questions, or struggles our team was dealing with. We also utilized Jira boards to handle any issues we came across during our cohort by submitting Jira tickets. Part of my duties as a Scrum Master was helping create new sprints as we worked through the cohort. This is where I would go over any sprint reviews, sprint retrospectives, and sprint planning. This process helped me in how I was able to organize my own Capstone project. So the data set that I was able to use was found on Kaggle.com, and it was an unorganized mess of an Excel spreadsheet. This data set was college football bowl games from 1902 to 2022. There are multiple different columns with over 1,500 rows of data. After looking through the data, making sure I could use this to answer my question, I moved into cleaning it. So I mainly used VS Code to write any codes to be able to clean my data. I used Jupyter Notebooks mainly just to test and run Python code, and then I moved all of my different codes into one single Python file, as you can see below, pictured on the left. I first utilized Python to read in the Excel spreadsheets to get a better understanding of everything I would need to do and clean up. First things first, I pulled the average fan attendance from that column and then filled any null values with that average fan attendance. I then organized the information by pulling just the winners of the bowl games, the average attendance for the winners, and then I got the losers of the bowl games and the average attendance for them as well. What this will do for me is be able to show the average attendance for a specific team when they won bowl games and then compare it to the average attendance when they lost a bowl game. So after saving my new data sheet from Python into a new narrowed down CSV file, I turned to SQL to help better break down the information. This is when I realized that I needed to use a much more relevant date for the bowl game data. There have been new bowl games added to the postseason since 1902, and comparing fan attendance over 100 years ago, it wasn't going to be as accurate as comparing fan attendance to 40 years ago. So I utilized SQL to pull the bowl game data for any games played from 1980 to 2022. Once I pulled the data from SQL, I then found out the top 20 teams based off how many total wins they have. I wanted to show the top 20 teams since these are your teams who are consistently making it to the bowl games after the regular season. So once I exported my new data sheet from SQL, I opened it up in Excel to clean the table and make it more visually appealing and easier to read. I was able to create some pivot tables with filters to break down any specific team I wanted to know about, but this information was great and all, but I wasn't able to understand it as much as Tableau was going to be able to show me. So moving into Tableau, I was able to create this tree this tree map that you can see here. What this is showing is any team that has at least one bowl win from 1980 to 2022. And what you can see here in the colors is that the red is showing that they had a very, very, very low fan attendance when they did win a game. And you can see teams like Michigan here that are green, they've averaged about 71,000 fans when they've lost and actually when they've won. So they are pretty consistent, right? Ohio State, just off the top of my head, here's a good example. I know for a fact that they've won 22 bowl games since 1980, and they've also lost 22 bowl games. So I might have said 21, but I meant 22. So they've won and lost the same exact amount of bowl games. But you can see here that the average attendance when they win is over 70,000 fans, whereas whenever they lose a bowl game, the average fan attendance is only 58,000. So you can see here in this next chart that I created, what this is the top 20 teams out of all of the teams that have won. These are the teams that have won the most since 1980. And what I did was I broke it down by which team had the highest average fan attendance when they won, and then their fan attendance when they lost. So now you can actually see Southern California is actually the team in the top 20 that has the highest average fan attendance whenever they win games. So maybe they have more fans that show up. And you can see here, Utah is at the 20th position, but their average fan attendance is only 35,000 compared to Southern California's, which is at 76,000. Here's just another couple different visualizations that you can look at. Here's a scatter plot with this line being the average win attendance for all the 20 teams. And you can see we have a couple of outliers here, with Alabama being at 33 total games that they've won, but they are under the total average fan attendance. So, and then same thing with Georgia, right? So Georgia's lost, or they've only won 32. Alabama's won one more than them, and the fan attendance is pretty solid, pretty close together. So you can see here that we have a couple of outliers with Alabama and Georgia being below the average fan attendance overall. And then you have a couple outliers up top here being Southern California and Ohio State that we saw on the previous chart here, these top two. And again, here's just another tree map that's condensed down more to where you can see how many wins total they have and how many losses. And I have them stacked. So the amount of wins is stacked up top with Ohio State here, for example, being 22, and then they've also lost 22 games. And here's Oklahoma State, where they've won 19 and they've only lost 10. But now you can see here that the average amount of fans during their games that they've won is 65,000. And then the average amount of games that they lost fan attendance wise is at 46,000. So there's 20,000 difference fan attendance there. So I had a hard time trying to find out the team's fan attendance at the bowl games to get a more accurate representation. The data was nowhere to be found, and after thinking about ticket sales, someone could purchase a ticket for the visitor side of the field but cheer for the home team. So that ticket sale for the visitor side doesn't represent an accurate number of fans for that visiting team. So I decided that overall fan attendance would be more accurate when compared to the team's win-loss ratio. Another issue I had was during the data cleaning process and how to pull the specific information I needed. What I ended up doing was I created a notepad file for this project and wrote out specifically what I needed. Having a list of information I could refer to helped keep me in check when pulling specific information. I was able to keep the data clean and easy to sort through. So some takeaways that I feel was important was how specific someone needs to be when utilizing data and graphs in order to answer their question. As I was moving along in the process, I was discovering different flaws or issues that would affect the answer to my question. So having a list of everything you could possibly think of to accurately answer the question is a much needed resource. So the overall conclusion that I gathered from this project is that a majority of college football teams win their respective bowl games in front of larger audiences. Out of the 20 teams that have won, there are a few that have a higher audience when they lose games. So maybe some teams can't focus as well as others in front of large crowds, or maybe that specific bowl game was played far away from their home field. And again, as you can see here, out of that top 20, I just narrowed down, hey, here's the top 4: Southern Carolina, Ohio State, Florida State, and Florida being one of the top 20 teams with the most fan attendance at their bowl games. Whereas you have Nebraska, Tennessee, Oklahoma State, and North Carolina that have a higher average fan attendance when they lose games versus when they win bowl games. So there are a lot of factors that come into play when looking at how a team performs in bowl games. The next steps in my project could be working on narrowing down the location of the bowl games compared to the winning team's home field. This could correlate a lot with how well fans travel for that team. The information could come in handy for colleges looking at which bowl games they get invited to and how well they have performed in the past when traveling that distance. So the next steps for my career are building more projects and gaining experience with cleaning, sorting, manipulating, and presenting data. I'm constantly asking myself questions where I could find the data needed and then be able to accurately answer that question. I plan on adding projects to my personal portfolio for employers to see what my skills are and to see how I process information to be able to answer the question. I do want to give a huge shout out to Savvy Coders and every instructor that helped me along the way. Their instruction and classes were extremely helpful, useful, and I wouldn't have been able to present a project like this without their assistance. Thank you for being here and watching this presentation. I hope I was able to show you how important overall fan attendance is when it comes to the success of a college football team during postseason bowl games. Thank you.